let me give you a little bit of the history of Jackson guitars and where it all spawns from. 1977, big year. There was a company out of San Dimas, California, actually right outside of San Dimas. The post office box was in San Dimas, so they utilized that. But it was called Charvel Guitar Repair. And what they would do is modify guitars. People would go there and bring them their Strats, their Les Pauls, whatever it is, to have them modified, to have things put on them called a compound radius. Now, Wayne Charvel had a first employee there by the name of Grover Jackson, who came up with a lot of great ideas. And the first employee of Grover Jackson's name was Mike Eldred, who is still with the company today. And I work right down the hallway from him in Scottsdale, Arizona. And what they did is they were taking stuff and they designed what they called a compound radius. Does anybody here know what a compound radius is on a neck? Awesome. Let us know.
Well, when you start out, it begins at one angle and it begins to taper, taper, and taper until you can go to whatever you're looking for, a sharper point or more rounded point.
Absolutely perfect. What it is, exactly that. A fingerboard looks flat, but they're actually round. And they're round at a very circular area, you know, very, that's obvious, circular round, but you know what I'm saying. If you take a big circle around it, it's actually a curvature. And up here, the radius of the fingerboard is 12 inches at the 3rd fret. And as the fingerboard goes down, as you said, it tapers off to a pointier edge, and actually, by the time you get to the 12th fret, it is a 16-inch radius. So it flattens out a little bit more comfortable for chording and heavy playing at the low end, and then as you get up for shredding, it flattens out a little bit more and gives you a little bit more space and comfort for your fingers to move without having a lot of string resonance or string attack involuntarily. So they were doing this, and Charvel guitars they taught this procedure to a company called Warmoth. Does anybody remember, you know, Warmoth guitar parts? You know, you order a neck and stuff like that. That's where Charvel was getting a lot of their parts from back in the day when they would build guitars for DiMarzio and things like that. So they taught them the compound radius, and Grover said, F this, man. Let's start making a Charvel guitar. Wayne had nothing to do with it, so Grover got all of his money together, borrowed everything he could from his mom, his family, mortgaged his house, and for a ridiculously low amount of money, in 1978, he bought Charvel. And from that point, they made the first Charvel guitar. Now, the first Charvel guitar looked a lot like a regular Fender Stratocaster, but it had the compound radius, it had shims inside the neck pocket, it had humbuckers rather than single coils, multiple switching opportunities, and anything they wanted to do for the customer. It was strictly custom shop guitars for the customer. And they had a guy come in, just got a break in the music industry, and it was late 77, early 78, and the guy's name was Eddie Van Halen. Came into the office and asked them to build 4 guitars for him. And he actually only ended up building 2 for Eddie, and one of them is in the back of Van Halen 1, the white guitar with the black stripes on it. That's actually a Charvel. And Eddie, over the years, being the eccentric guy that he is, tweaked on it, spray painted over the paint job, and painted it red, and that later, over the course of about 10 years, evolved into what we know as Frankenstein. So that was based on an original Grover Jackson Charvel. So they started releasing these guitars, and it became a huge hype. And then back in 1980, just a couple of years later, this kid that came up to him looked like Mick Ronson from David Bowie. Walks in, this tiny little dude. His name was Randy Rhoads. And he just joined Ozzy's band. Ozzy was just recently fired from Black Sabbath. He didn't quit, he was fired, and had to get a new start on life. Hired on Randy Rhoads, and Randy came up to him and said, hey, I want a guitar that looks like a shark. A shark? What are you talking about? You know, have it like, you know, pointy and look at like a Mako shark, and it sticks way the hell out here, and does all this crazy stuff that you were talking about doing with neck throughs and stuff like that. So Grover said, all right, but if I put the Charvel name on this guitar, our company will go through the toilet. So he came up with the Concorde, and that picture that you see with Randy Rhoads with the white Jackson with the black pinstripes on it and everything, that was actually the first production Jackson that was made for a customer for Randy Rhoads, and they called it the Concorde. But because of the plane, the Concorde, they couldn't keep the name. but it had the compound radius, it had 25.5 scale length, it had a 4-degree neck angle on it for better action and better movement of the strings up and down. As well, it had this giant point up here and a shorter one down here, and Randy hated it. He hated it. He rejected the guitar. Even though that's the guitar that everybody sees him with, he actually hated it because he was 5'2", 98 pounds, soaking wet with his little leather vest on top of it. So they redesigned it. And as you see right here with the RR5, when we started, right after that, he redesigned the Rhoads and changed it to look like that. Because on the Concorde, the body started way up at the 15th fret, and you really had no access to the higher frets. So we redesigned it, and those specs for the Randy Rhoads #2, which you see very few pictures of Randy with, it was a black Rhoads with gold hardware, gold pick guard, and it had the brushed logo just like the other one, but it had the shark fin inlays on it. He loved it, absolutely loved it, and that was the dawning of really what Jackson Guitars was Rhoads #2. And we have kept the Rhoads USA RR1T actually to those same specs ever since. They have not changed. Even the pickup selection is still the same, everything about it. The only thing we've upgraded was wires and, you know, certain things that go along with time. But everything else is exactly the same, and that's why we've kept it that way, because what the bloodline means for Jackson is that there is no ancestors. It was designed on a piece of cardboard with a pencil, and like all designs of Jackson guitars, whether it be this design or the Phil Demmel that's right behind me, or the Kellys or the Warriors, customers come up with those ideas, and they're all custom ideas and they're custom made. To this day, at the Jackson Custom Shop in Corona, California, the majority of the same builders who were there in that time are still there today. Mike Shannon, bow to him. He is the man. He's the guy who actually physically built Randy's guitar with Grover, with Mike Eldred and Tim Wilson. And that's how the company got started. Tim Wilson, still a part of the company. He's just retired now, and he's just kind of spending a lot of his time on the road. Mike Shannon, still the master builder, still oversees everything that has to do with the custom shop. Mike Eldred moved to the Fender Custom Shop and works with me down in Scottsdale. And now Pablo Santana is the #2 master builder who's been with the company for 22 years. And to set the record straight, that was the dawning of the pointy guitar. Now everything, and I'm not trying to boast or anything of that nature, but that was the original. And even in the history books, it's documented that the 3 major original electric guitar manufacturers that changed the world was Fender, Gibson, and Jackson Charvel. That changed everything. So when you see other brands out there that also are pointy, it is taken from these ideas. But, set the record straight, everybody thinks that all these companies hate each other. We don't. We're all friends. We're all buddies. We're all in this business to try to help each other out. We're trying to make money. We're all trying to make a living doing what we love. But fortunately enough, we can actually stand proud to say we're still the same guys.